The ship was called the Patient Knife. It was old and ugly, and had been repaired so many times that almost nothing original remained. But it flew well, it fought well, and it had saved Silas's life more times than he could count. He trusted it more than he trusted most people. Silas sat in the pilot's chair and inserted the data chip into the console. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the screen filled with information, coordinates, security schedules, personnel files, blueprints of buildings. The girl had been thorough. Whatever else she was not foolish. She had spent a long time preparing this dot. At the center of everything was a dossier on Archon, Mael. EKE to dot. Silas read it carefully. Malekith had ruled the theocracy for over 300 years. No one knew what species he had originally been, or if he had ever been a normal creature at all. His followers believed he was a living god who had descended from a higher plane of existence to guide them toward purity. He never aged. He never got sick. Weapons that should have killed him simply did not work. 12 different assassination attempts had been made on his life. All had failed. The assassins had died screaming. There were images, too. Recordings from worlds the theocracy had purified. Silas forced himself to watch them. Cities burning while hymns played from speakers in the sky. People running and falling and not getting up. Children crying for parents who were already dead. One recording was labeled with a name Silas did not recognize. Kethra. He played it. The planet had been beautiful once. Green forests, blue oceans, cities of white stone. The Kethri people had been small, gentle creatures who valued art and music and peace. They had committed no crime except existing. The theocracy had burned their world to the core. The entire species was gone. Every city, every village, every living thing. The recording ended with a shot of the planet from orbit. It was black and dead, a wound in space where life had once thrived. Silas turned off the screen. His hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear, from anger. He understood now why the girl's eyes had looked so old. She had watched her entire people die. She was the last Kethri in the universe, and she had survived. Only to hunt the monster who had destroyed everything she loved. Silas needed more information. The data chip was useful, but it was not enough. He needed to know what he was really dealing with. He set course for Nexus Station, a neutral trading hub where information was bought and sold like any other product. He knew someone there who might be able to help. Mira Chun had been a spy once, working for one of the human governments. Now she was an independent broker who traded in secrets. She was expensive, but she was good. More importantly, she was honest. In her business, reputation was everything. He found her in her usual place, a small office hidden behind a noodle shop. She looked the same as always. Sharp eyes, silver hair, a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She was old, but she moved like someone much younger. "Silas Varn," she said when he entered. "I heard you killed the Varax matriarch. Impressive work." "I need information," Silas said. He was not in the mood for small talk. Myra raised an eyebrow. "You usually need money, not information. What has changed?" "Archon Malekith. The theocracy. I need to know everything." The smile disappeared from Myra's face. She studied him for a long moment, then gestured for him to sit. "That is a dangerous name to speak," she said quietly. "Even here, even now. The theocracy has spies everywhere. They do not like people asking questions about their god." "Then speak quietly." Myra sighed. She looked tired suddenly, as if the weight of what she knew was pressing down on her. "Malekith is not just a ruler," she said. "He is something else. Something old. The theocracy's gods are real, Silas, but they are not divine. They are parasites. Creatures from somewhere outside normal space. They feed on worship and suffering. The more people believe in them, the stronger they become. The more pain they cause, the more power they gain. Silas felt cold. How do you kill something like that? No one knows. No one has ever succeeded. The gods are anchored to physical hosts, but destroying the host is not enough. The entity simply moves to a new body. Myra leaned forward, but there are rumors. Old stories from species that died long ago. They say the anchor can be severed. Cut the connection between the parasite and its host, and the creature becomes vulnerable. For a moment, it can be killed. How do I sever the connection? I do not know. No one does. The knowledge was lost centuries ago. Myra paused. But I know someone who might. A scientist named Fen Torvalis. He studied the theocracy's gods before they silenced him. He disappeared years ago, but I can find him. Silas nodded. Do it. What else can you tell me? Myra hesitated. The girl who gave you this mission. You should know who she is. I know she is the last of her people. Her name is Yanara. She was a child when the theocracy came to Kethra. Her parents hid her in a supply crate on a merchant ship. She watched from orbit as her world burned. Myra's voice softened. She has been planning this for 3 years. Finding information, building networks, looking for someone capable of doing what she cannot do herself. She chose a monster hunter. She chose a human, Myra corrected. Do you know what the elder species call us? The short-lived madness. We appear from nowhere, build empires in centuries, and accomplish things that should take millennia. We do not wait. We do not accept limits. We simply decide something should be done, and then we do it. She smiled grimly. The theocracy fears humans more than any other species. Because we do not know, we are supposed to be afraid. Silas thought about this. He had always known humans were different. They lived short lives compared to most species. They had no natural weapons, no special abilities. But they never stopped. They never gave up. They kept pushing forward, even when everything said they should stop. Maybe that was a kind of strength after all. Find me Torvalis, Silas said, and find me a way into theocracy space. I'm going to kill their god. Mira shook her head slowly. You are either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, Silas admitted. He left her office and walked through the crowded station. Around him, 1,000 different species went about their lives. Most of them had never heard of the Lost Fleet. Most of them did not care about 40 million humans who had vanished decades ago. But Silas cared. He carried their names with him, even the ones he did not know. That was what humans did, they remembered. They carried their dead until they could set them down properly. He would find the truth. He would kill the demon. And he would finally know what had happened to his father. Whatever the cost. The blood of the Varax matriarch was still drying on his coat when Silas Varn walked into the cantina. The creature had been the size of a small building, with claws that could cut through steel and a scream that made men go mad. 11 hunting parties had died trying to kill it. Silas had done it alone in 3 days. He was tired. His bones hurt. A deep cut on his arm needed stitches, and he was fairly certain 2 of his ribs were cracked. But he walked straight and kept his face calm. In places like Dust Hollow, showing weakness was the same as dying. The cantina was full of the usual crowd. Miners who dug strange metals from the ground. Smugglers who moved illegal goods between stars. Mercenaries looking for their next job. A few aliens sat in the corners, their strange eyes watching everything. Kezara 7 was a lawless world, far from any government, and it attracted people who wanted to stay hidden. Silas found a table in the back and sat down with his back to the wall. An old habit. A survival habit. He ordered something strong to drink and waited for his contact to arrive with payment. The drink came. His contact did not. Instead, a girl appeared. She was young, maybe 16 years old. Her clothes were worn and patched many times. Her face was thin, too thin, like she had not eaten properly in a long time. But it was her eyes that made Silas pause. They were old eyes. Eyes that had seen terrible things. Eyes that belonged to someone who had lost everything and kept going anyway. She sat down across from him without asking permission. Silas raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He had learned long ago that the universe was strange, and sometimes it was better to let strange things explain themselves. The girl placed a small data chip on the table between them. Her hand was steady. Whatever she wanted, she was not afraid to ask for it. "You are Silas Varn," she said. It was not a question. The hunter who kills things that cannot be killed. "I kill things that are hard to kill," Silas corrected her. "Nothing is impossible to kill. Some things just take more effort." The girl nodded as if this answer pleased her. "You slay creatures for wealth. That is your trade. That is your life." She pushed the data chip closer to him. "But will you slay the demon for the truth?" Silas looked at the chip, then back at the girl. In his experience, people who spoke in riddles usually wanted something dangerous. And people who called their enemies demons were usually running from something worse than monsters. "I do not work for free," he said. "And I do not work for crazy people. You have 10 seconds to explain yourself before I walk away." The girl did not blink. "The demon is Archon Malekith, ruler of the theocracy of the Burning Word. He controls 12 star systems. His followers believe he is a god. They burn worlds in his name." She paused. "He burned my world. He killed my people. Every single one of them. I am the last." Silas had heard of the theocracy. Everyone had. They were fanatics who believed aliens and humans were impure. They conquered worlds and purified them, which was a polite way of saying they murdered everyone who would not worship their gods. Most governments avoided them. Fighting the theocracy was expensive, and there was no profit in it. "I am sorry for your loss," Silas said, and he meant it. "But I am a hunter, not an army. I cannot destroy an empire for you." "I do not want the empire," the girl said. "I want Malekith. Only him. And I am not offering you money as payment." "Then what are you offering?" The girl leaned forward. "Truth. The truth about what happened to Earth's lost fleet." Silas felt something cold move through his chest. The lost fleet. 10,000 ships that had vanished during humanity's first great expansion into the galaxy. 40 million people, gone without a trace. No wreckage. No signals. Nothing. It was humanity's greatest mystery and greatest wound. His father had commanded one of those ships. Silas had been 7 years old when his father left. He remembered the last hug, the smell of his father's uniform, the promise that he would return with stories of new worlds. That promise had never been kept. For 30 years, Silas had carried that absence like a stone in his chest. "You are lying," he said, but his voice was not as steady as before. "The data chip contains proof," the girl said. "Partial records. Enough to show you that Malekith knows what happened. The full truth is in his personal archives. Kill him, and you can access everything." Silas stared at her. He wanted to dismiss her as a desperate survivor telling lies to get revenge. But something in her eyes told him she was not lying. She had nothing left to lose. People like that did not waste time on deception. "Why me?" he asked. "There are assassins for hire. There are special military units. Why come to a monster hunter?" The girl almost smiled. It was a sad, broken thing. Because the theocracy has spies everywhere. Assassins are known. Military units are tracked. But you are just a human who kills beasts for money. Nobody is watching you. She tilted her head. And because you are the only hunter who has never failed. 11 teams died trying to kill the Varax matriarch. You walked into that cantina with its blood on your coat. You do not know how to give up. Silas said nothing for a long moment. The noise of the cantina continued around them. Laughter, arguments, the clink of glasses. Normal sounds of a normal place. But his world had just shifted. He picked up the data chip. "What is your name?" he asked. But when he looked up, the girl was gone. Her chair was empty. He looked around the cantina, but she had vanished like smoke. No one seemed to have noticed her leave. Silas sat alone with the chip in his hand. It was small and light. It should not have felt so heavy that he thought about his father. He thought about 40 million people who had disappeared into the dark between stars. He thought about a demon who called himself a god and burned worlds for fun. Then he put the chip in his pocket and finished his drink. His contact finally arrived with payment for Varrick's matriarch. Silas took the money without really seeing it. His mind was already somewhere else. Already planning. Already hunting. He had killed monsters his whole life. He had never killed a god before, but the girl was right about one thing. He did not know how to give up. Outside the cantina, the twin suns of Khazar 7 were setting, painting the sky in shades of red and orange. Somewhere out there, across the vast emptiness of space, a demon sat on a throne and believed himself untouchable. Silas walked toward his ship. He had work to do. The dead moon had no name. It was a forgotten rock in an empty system, far from any trade routes or colonies. The perfect place for people who did not want to be found. Silas landed his ship in a crater and walked across the great dust to a small shelter built into the rock. The airlock opened before he reached it. Someone was expecting him. Yanara stood inside. She looked different from the cantina. Stronger somehow. More focused. Behind her stood a thin man with nervous eyes and an alien with blue scales and too many teeth. "You came," Yanara said. There was no surprise in her voice. She had known he would. "I had questions," Silas replied. "You have answers." "I have information." "Answers are what we will find when Malekith is dead." She led him deeper into the shelter. It was larger than it looked from outside, carved into the moon's rock over many years. Maps covered the walls. Data screens glowed with information. This was not just a hiding place. This was a command center. Dinara introduced the others. The thin man was Dr. Fen Torvalis, the scientist Mira had mentioned. He had studied the theocracy's gods and learned their secrets. When they discovered he was getting too close to the truth, they had tried to kill him. He had been running ever since. The alien was called Crix. He was a mercenary from a species that humans could not pronounce. He owed Silas a life debt from a job years ago, when Silas had pulled him from a collapsing mine. He had come to repay that debt. "Show me what you have," Silas said. Nara activated a holographic display. A massive structure appeared in the air between them. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Towers of dark stone reaching toward the sky. Windows that glowed with inner fire. A central spire that seemed to twist reality around it. "The Cathedral of Ascending Flame," Yanara said. "Malekith's fortress. His throne. His temple. It sits at the center of Pyrolith, the theocracy's capital world. 10 million faithful live in the city around it. An army protects its walls. Defense systems that can destroy warships guard it from above. It is impossible to infiltrate," Torvalis added quietly. "I have studied the blueprints for years. Every entrance is watched. Every approach is covered. Even if someone got inside, the cathedral itself is alive in some way. It serves Malekith. It protects him." Silas studied the hologram. He had faced impossible odds before. There was always a way. You just had to think differently. "What about prisoners?" he asked. Yanara frowned. "What about them?" The theocracy captures heretics, enemies of their faith. What happens to them? They are brought to the cathedral for judgment, Yanara said slowly. Malekith likes to pass sentence personally. He enjoys watching heretics suffer. Silas smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then we do not sneak in. We get captured. The others stared at him. Tovales looked like he might faint. Even Crix, who feared very little, seemed uncertain. That is suicide, Yanara said. No, Silas replied. That is human thinking. Every other species that has tried to kill Malekith used stealth. Assassins hiding in shadows. Special forces sneaking through ventilation shafts. They all failed because they tried not to be noticed. I am going to walk through the front door in chains. No one expects that. He explained his plan. It was simple, which was good. Simple plans had fewer things that could go wrong. Silas would attack a theocracy diplomat in neutral space. Not kill, just attack. Make a big scene. Get captured on purpose. The theocracy would identify him as a human monster hunter, someone with a reputation. They would want to make an example of him. They would bring him to Malekith himself. While Malekith was focused on Silas, the others would infiltrate the cathedral using the chaos as cover. Tovales had identified Malekith's anchor, the physical component that tied his parasitic essence to the material world. It was hidden somewhere in the cathedral's inner sanctum. Yanara and Crix would find it. Tovales had built a device that could sever the connection. Once Malekith was cut off from his anchor, he would be vulnerable. Silas would do the rest. This is insane, Tovales said. Yes, Silas agreed. But it will work because it is insane. The theocracy has planned for every logical attack. They have not planned for someone stupid enough to get captured on purpose. Yanara studied him for a long moment. You are willing to be tortured, to suffer, maybe to die, for truth about ships that vanished before you were born. My father was on one of those ships, Silas said. I have spent my whole life not knowing what happened to him. Not knowing if he died quickly or slowly. Not knowing if he was brave at the end or afraid. He met her eyes. I carry that weight every day. Killing Malekith will not bring my father back. But knowing the truth might finally let me set that weight down. Yanara nodded slowly. Something changed in her eyes. Understanding, perhaps. Recognition. My parents pushed me into that supply crate, she said quietly. My mother was crying. My father was trying to smile. They told me to be brave. They told me they would find me later. Her voice cracked. The ship launched 30 seconds before the first bombs fell. I watched through a tiny window as everything I loved turned to fire. The shelter was silent. Even Crix, who claimed to have no emotions, said nothing. We all carry our dead, Silas said finally. That is what humans do. We carry them until we can set them down properly. And sometimes, setting them down means making sure the monster who killed them never hurts anyone else. They spent the next 3 days preparing. Tovales finished his device and explained how it worked. Crix mapped the cathedral's service tunnels, the paths that servants and slaves used. Yanara gathered weapons, supplies, and information. On the 4th day, they were ready. Silas boarded his ship alone. The others would follow in a different vessel, hidden and quiet, waiting for their moment. Before he left, Yanara stopped him at the airlock. Why did you ask my name? She said, in the cantina. Before I left. Silas looked at her. This girl who had lost everything, who had survived when her entire species died, who had built a plan to kill a god using nothing but determination and spite. Because names matter, he said. Because when I kill Malekith, I want him to know who sent me. Not just me. You. Your parents. Every Kethri who died screaming. Every human who vanished with the lost fleet. They all deserve to be remembered. Inara blinked. For a moment, she looked like the child she should have been. The child the theocracy had stolen from her. "Do not die," she said. "I will try." He flew his ship toward theocracy space. Toward the diplomat he would attack. Toward the chains that would bind him. Toward the demon who called himself a god. In his pocket, he carried a list of names. 10,000 ships. 40 million people. He had found as many names as he could. He would speak them all before this was over. The universe thought humans were weak because they lived short lives. The universe was wrong. Short lives just meant humans had no time to waste. No time for careful planning. No time for fear. Silas Varn had work to do. The chains were heavy. They were designed for creatures much stronger than humans, which meant they cut into Silas's wrists and made every movement painful. His guards seemed to enjoy this. They were tall, pale beings wrapped in red robes, their faces hidden behind metal masks shaped like screaming faces. Silas had been in their custody for 3 days. The attack on the diplomat had gone exactly as planned. He had walked into a neutral station, found his target, and fired a single shot that missed on purpose. Then he had let himself be overwhelmed by security forces. The theocracy had claimed him before anyone else could. They had beaten him during the journey. Not too badly. They wanted him alive and aware for Malekith. But his face was bruised, his ribs ached, and one of his eyes was swollen nearly shut. He walked with a limp that was only partially fake. The Cathedral of Ascending Flame was even more impressive in person. The walls seemed to pulse with inner light. The air was warm and smelled like burning incense. Hymns echoed from somewhere deep inside, sung by voices that did not sound entirely human. Silas was dragged through endless corridors, past hundreds of faithful who watched him with hatred in their eyes. To them, he was filth, a heretic, an enemy of everything they believed. They spat at him as he passed. Some threw small stones. Finally, he was brought to the throne room. It was massive. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. Pillars of dark stone lined the walls, carved with scenes of conquest and purification. Thousands of worshippers knelt on the floor, their heads bowed, their lips moving in silent prayer. At the far end of the room, on a throne that seemed to be made of crystallized screams, sat Malekith. Silas had seen images of him. They did not do justice to the reality. Malekith looked almost human, but wrong in ways that were hard to describe. His proportions were slightly off. His skin was too smooth. His eyes reflected light in a way that living eyes should not. He was beautiful and terrible, like a statue come to life. He was also very, very old. Silas could feel it. The weight of centuries pressing down on the room. The accumulated power of countless deaths and endless worship. "A human," Malekith said. His voice was like honey poured over broken glass. Sweet and cutting at the same time. How delightful. "Your kind always struggles so beautifully." Silas was forced to his knees. He did not resist. "Not yet. You attacked one of my servants," Malekith continued. "A pointless act of violence in neutral territory. What did you hope to accomplish?" "I wanted to meet you," Silas said. His voice was rough from thirst, but he kept it steady. "I wanted to see the great Archon Malekith for myself." Malekith smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "And now that you see me, are you impressed? I have killed more impressive things." The room went silent. The worshippers stopped breathing. The guards tensed. No one spoke to Malekith this way, but Malekith only laughed. It was a cold sound, like ice cracking. "I like you," he said. "You have fire, spirit. It will make breaking you so much more satisfying." He rose from his throne and descended the steps with fluid grace. "I could kill you quickly, but that would be a waste. Instead, I think I will give you something. A gift. The truth you came here seeking. Silas felt his heart beat faster. What truth? The truth about your lost fleet, Malekith said. Did you think I did not know why you came? I have read your file, Silas Var. I know about your father. I know about the ship he commanded. I know everything. He waved his hand and the air shimmered. A holographic image appeared, floating above the worshippers. Ships. Thousands of ships, stretching across the darkness of space. The lost fleet. They did not vanish by accident, Malekith said. They were lured. We created a false signal, a beacon that promised paradise. A new world, perfect for colonization. Your fleet followed it like insects drawn to light. The image changed. The ships entered a nebula, following the beacon. And waiting for them inside the nebula was a trap. Theocracy warships by the hundred. Energy weapons that tore through shields. Boarding parties that slaughtered crews. Silas watched his father's ship die. He watched it explode in a flash of light while other ships burned around it. 40 million humans, Malekith said softly. Fed to my kind over decades. We do not just consume flesh, you see. We consume souls, experiences, memories. Your people died screaming, and we drank every moment of their terror. The image showed humans fighting, humans dying, humans ramming their ships into enemy vessels rather than surrendering, humans shielding their children with their bodies even as the end came. They were magnificent, Malekith admitted. Even in death, they refused to submit. They cursed us with their last breaths. They promised revenge even as we consumed them. He smiled. It was exquisite, and ultimately pointless. Silas felt something cold and hard crystallize inside him. The anger he had carried for 30 years suddenly became clear, focused, sharp as a blade. You made a mistake, he said quietly. Malekith tilted his head. Did I? You have been eating humans for 40 years, and you still do not understand us at all. Somewhere deep in the cathedral, an explosion echoed. The lights flickered. Malekith's smile faltered. You thought I came here to die, Silas said. He was on his feet now, though he did not remember standing. You thought I was just another desperate fool seeking revenge. But I am not alone. While you were talking, my friends were working. While you were showing me your triumph, they were finding your anchor. Another explosion. Closer this time. The worshippers began to panic, looking around in confusion. The guards drew weapons. Malekith's face twisted. For the first time, something like concern appeared in those ancient eyes. What have you done? Humans do not give up, Silas said. We do not accept limits. We do not know when we are supposed to stop. He smiled, blood dripping from his split lip. And we never ever forget. Deep in the cathedral, Yanara and Crix had reached the inner sanctum. Tovalis' device was in position. The anchor, a crystalline structure pulsing with dark energy, was exposed in the throne room. Malekith suddenly screamed. It was not a human scream. It was something older, something vast, something that had never known pain before this moment. Silas pulled his hands free from the chains. He had been working them loose since his capture, hour by hour, centimeter by centimeter. Human patience, human determination. The guards moved toward him, but they were confused, distracted by their god screaming. Silas grabbed a weapon from the nearest one and fired. Malekith stumbled. For a moment, his physical form flickered, revealing something underneath. A void, a hunger, a darkness that had consumed worlds. You cannot kill a god, Malekith howled. But there was fear in his voice now. Real fear. Silas walked toward him, step by step, while the cathedral shook around them. "We have killed everything else," he said. "You are just next on the list." In the sanctum, Yana activated the device. The anchor shattered. The connection was severed. And for the first time in 3 centuries, Arkham Melekith was mortal. The cathedral was dying. Without its connection to Melekith, the living stone began to crack. The fire in the windows dimmed. The hymns that had echoed through the corridors fell silent. In the throne room, chaos ruled. The worshippers were running, screaming, trampling each other in their panic. Their god was wounded. Their faith was shaking. Everything they had believed was crumbling around them. Melekith stood at the center of the chaos. His beautiful form was flickering, unstable. One moment he looked almost human. The next, he was something else entirely. Something vast and dark and hungry, forced into a shape too small to contain it. "This is impossible," he snarled. His voice had lost its honey smoothness. Now it was raw, desperate. "I have lived for millennia. I have consumed civilizations. I am eternal." "You are eternal," Silas said. He advanced slowly, the stolen weapon steady in his hands. "Now you are just dying." Melekith hurled power at him. Reality twisted. The air itself became a weapon. Silas Dove rolled, felt the energy pass inches above his head. His body screamed with pain. He was too old for this. Too broken. Too human. But he kept moving. In the sanctum, Yanara and Crix were fighting their way out. The cathedral's defenders had finally realized what was happening. Guards poured through the corridors, weapons firing. Crix held them back with alien strength, while Yanara led the way toward the escape route they had planned. Tavalis was already at the ship, preparing for emergency launch. He was not a fighter. His role was done. Now he waited, hoping his friends would survive. Back in the throne room, Silas was losing. Melekith was weakened, but he was still powerful. He caught Silas with a blow that sent him flying across the room. Silas hit a pillar and felt something break inside him. Ribs, probably. Maybe worse. He spat blood and forced himself to stand. "Why do you keep fighting?" Melekith demanded. He sounded genuinely confused. "You are broken. You are dying. Your victory is incomplete. Even if you kill me, there are other gods. The theocracy will continue. You have changed nothing." Silas laughed. It hurt, but he laughed anyway. "You really do not understand humans," he said. "We do not fight because we will win. We fight because something is wrong and we cannot stand to do nothing. We fight because the alternative is giving up, and we do not know how to do that." He raised his weapon. His hands were shaking. His vision was blurring. He had maybe seconds before he collapsed. "My father fought," he said. "Even when his ship was destroyed, even when there was no hope, he fought. I know because you showed me. You thought it would break me to see how he died. But you were wrong. You showed me that he was brave, that he never surrendered, that he died with dignity." He stepped forward, then another step. Each movement was agony. The Kethri fought too. When your ships came to their world, they did not just accept death. They ran into burning buildings to save their children. They stood between your soldiers and their families. They fought with tools and rocks and bare hands. Another step. Melekith was backing away now, his flickering form unstable, afraid. Every species you have consumed thought they were helpless. But they were not. They fought. They struggled. They refused to go quietly into your darkness. And that resistance, that defiance, is why we are here now. Because they never gave up. Because their memory demands justice. Silas was close now. Close enough to see the fear in Melekith's ancient eyes. "You wanted to know why I keep fighting?" Silas said. "Because I carry them. All of them. The 40 million. The Kethri. every world you have burned. I carry their names, and I will not set them down until you are dead." He fired. The energy bolt hit Malekith's chest. Without his anchor, without his connection to the parasite that had made him a god, he had no protection. The bolt tore through him. Malekith screamed. It was the death scream of something ancient and terrible. The sound echoed through the cathedral, through the city, through the entire planet. Every faithful heard it. Every believer felt their god die. His form collapsed, dissolved, became nothing but ash and shadow. The void that had lurked beneath his beautiful mask was exposed for a moment, howling its rage and despair. Then it too faded, torn from reality, cast back into whatever darkness had spawned it. The throne of crystallized screams shattered. The pillars cracked. The cathedral began to collapse. Silas felt himself falling. The weapon slipped from his fingers. The world was growing dark. Someone caught him. Strong hands. Blue scales. Crix. "Foolish human," Crix said, but there was something like respect in his voice. "Always trying to die. Did we win?" Silas whispered. "Yes. Now stop talking and let us save your life." They carried him through the collapsing cathedral. Yanara led the way, her face hard and focused. The faithful were too broken to stop them. Their god was dead. Their faith was ashes. They knelt in the ruins and wept. The ship was waiting. Tovalis had the engines running. They barely made it aboard before the cathedral collapsed completely, sending a pillar of smoke and fire into the sky. As they fled the planet, Silas saw the chaos through the viewport. The capital city was in flames, not from attack, but from the faithful turning on each other. Without Malekith, the theocracy had no center. It was tearing itself apart. Weeks later, Silas stood in a memorial garden on a human station. He was wrapped in bandages, supported by crutches. The doctor said he would never fully recover. He did not carry in his hand. He held a list of names. 10,000 ships. 40 million people. He had spent days finding as many names as possible, collecting them from old records and family registries. Now, one by one, he spoke them aloud and entered them into the memorial wall. His father's name went first, then the others. Captain after captain. Crew member after crew member. Families. Children. Friends. They were no longer lost. They were remembered. Yanara found him there as the twin suns set. "Malekith's archives have been released," she said. "Every species the theocracy destroyed, every world they burned, every crime they committed. It is spreading across the galaxy. Everyone will know the truth." Silas nodded but did not turn around. "There are other gods," Yanara continued. "The theocracy is breaking apart, but the parasites that controlled it are still out there, hiding, waiting, finding new hosts." Now Silas turned. The girl looked different, older, stronger. The weight of vengeance had lifted from her shoulders. But something else had taken its place. "You want to hunt them," he said. "Yes. It could take years, decades. We might never finish. I know." Silas looked at the memorial wall. The names glowed softly in the fading light. He had finally set down his burden. He had found the truth. He had avenged his father. But out there, in the darkness between stars, more demons waited. More victims cried out for justice. More names waited to be spoken. "The truth," he said slowly. "That is what you offered me for killing a demon." "Yes. And now you're asking me to kill more demons. What is the payment this time?" Yanara almost smiled. It was small and sad, but it was real. The first genuine smile he had seen from her. "More truth," she said. "There is always more truth." Silas looked at his crutches, at his broken body, at the scars that would never heal. Then he thought about his father, about the Kethri, About every species that had been told they were helpless and had fought anyway. He was human. Fighting was what he did. "Then I guess we better get started," he said. They walked toward the docks together. Behind them, the memorial wall glowed with 10,000 names. Ahead of them, a small ship waited, ready to carry them into the dark. Somewhere out there, the remaining gods of the theocracy were hiding. They thought they were safe. They thought humanity would stop, thought they were wrong. Humans never stopped. Humans never forgot. Humans carried their dead and their anger and their hope, and they kept walking forward no matter what. That was what made them terrifying. That was what made them human. And the universe was about to remember why even gods should be afraid.